Hello, Armoured Pants here. I have a video for you. Another tank in the American line, the second tank in that line, the Tier 2, the M3 Stuart. So let's have a look at it. As always, we look at the tech spec first, and we're going to use Blitz hanger, which is a fantastic asset. If you haven't used it before, definitely recommend it for you. Now, this is a light tank. It has 340 hit points. Damage per minute is about just under 400. But what I want to take note of here is the fact it has an auto loader, it has a magazine. So it's not single shot when you get the top gun. So there's going to be 2 shells in the magazine. Now I've covered auto loaders in the British line, but if you haven't looked at that, we'll do a quick recap here. Now firstly, setting up the gun. As always, we're going to use supercharge and refined gun to get maximum penetration over distance. Make sure we pen the enemy and do the most damage. Now let's have a look at the gun here. It's a 37mm gun. Now here's a tip for you with an auto loader or reload magazine gun. If you double tap the shell icon, it loads automatically even if you have a shell in the breech. So it saves time and also saves you wasting a shell. And we'll have a look at that in the game. Now the thing with an auto loader is that you fire 2 shells off in quick succession. It means you can do twice as much damage as a single shot, but it takes longer to reload. So you need to be cognizant of that when you're facing the enemy. And you need to check how many shells you have. Now, here's a look at the front of the tank. This tank has excellent frontal armour and bounce shots. In particular, the turret is brilliant. If you look here, the purple part is impenetrable. The red part is very difficult to pen. If you look at the back, the turret is still pretty good. The bounce shots in the back as well, so it's an excellent turret. But as always, the back and the side of the tank is vulnerable. What we want to have a look at here is how this tank faces up frontally. And you can see the turret is red, which means almost impossible to pen. So it's red and purple, almost impossible to penetrate. And this means that this tank is very good for hull down. You can see here when you're facing Tier 2 and Tier 1, it's almost impossible to penetrate the turret. So this is a good hull down tank. What do we mean by that? Well, because the turret's strong, if you hide the hull, that's the rest of the tank, the body of the tank, then it means that the enemy can find it almost impossible to penetrate you. The tactics there, it's very good for circle of death, and you will actually see that in the game, so take note of that. Basically, circle of death is basically going around the enemy, making it difficult for them to hit you, keeping their gun off you while you fire at them. And you'll see that in the first game, that you're going to see in a minute. Now this is angling. What is angling? Well, if you look at the difference between the colours on the front and of the tank when it's face onto you and at the front when it's angled, you'll see that it's more orange and red. That means because you put the armour at an angle, it's much more difficult to penetrate. Now, I have 2 games for you. The first game I'm using the single shotgun, and the second game I'm going to use the auto loader, the magazine, so you can see the difference. Now also pay attention to this map, because this map is one you'll play most often. This, Mirage and Fortress Bear, the maps you'll play most often in the lower tiers. The key to this map is gaining control of this hill. Why? Well, first you're elevated, and as in normal warfare, having the height gives a significant advantage over the enemy. Also it means you can spot the enemy, plus you can fire down into them, and just more or less it's also in the center of the map, so you can actually control both sides. You see here that we have we can fire shots into the right side of the map, and if the enemy was on the other side, we can also fire shots into the left side of the map. Now what am I doing here? Well, I am moving my tank to make it very difficult for him to get a shot at me. As we've always said before, never stand still. If I had just stayed in that position where I was, he would have had some free shots at me. Whereas by moving backwards, moving around, I've made it very difficult for him. And he's an inexperienced player, so what he's done is he's lost interest now in trying to shoot at me because he's not getting any targets. So he's just moved on up and given me a couple of free shots into him. Now I also want you to pay attention here to what I do when I'm in a brawl with him. So I'm going to brawl with him in a second. He's going to come up here and now into my top of the hill, and you can see that I'm brawling with him. Now look how many shots I bounce off him, because I'm moving around, I'm wiggling. You see I'm creating the angles that we spoke about when we were looking in tech spec. There I've got another shot bounced. He's finding it very difficult to shoot at me. I'm not giving him an easy target. At this point I blocked so many shots then it's almost equivalent to my total hit points. I've blocked, you know, almost 300, so it's almost equivalent to my total hit points. Why is that important? Well, firstly, I'm not receiving any damage, right, and I'm damaging him, which means obviously I am going to win the brawl with him. But it's more important than that. And let's talk a little bit about game philosophy here before we look at this circle of death, which I'm going to do on him now. Circle of death, it means different things to different people. But what I'm doing here is I'm moving around this tank. I'm circling him to death, in that I hope that I will kill him. And what I'm doing is I'm just keeping his gun from not facing me. So if I move around, I'm going to keep his gun off me. Now, by moving around, I can ensure that it's difficult for him to hit me. I'm not a moving target, difficult to pen. I'm moving around, wiggling, jiggling, going around, keeping his gun off me, moving, creating angles, blocking damage, and then I've killed him. In fact, the only damage I received in that brawl with him when I was doing the circle of death was actually from the other tank behind, because he was getting shots at me. But now I'm using this house here as cover, and I'm going to be able to put a few shots into him. This bounced because he has good armour profile on the top, and I actually hit the top of his armour at the back. But now I'm aiming more carefully, and you'll see, as I always say, aiming is maiming, so take careful aim. And you'll see a perfect example of this here. Look, there's only one point in the back of the turret I can hit, but I pen it by aiming very carefully, not just firing off randomly. Now this takes me back to what I was talking about, game philosophy. This game is not about you as an individual. This game is about you as a part of a team. Think about it this way. The enemy wins when the total accumulated value of your hit points reaches 0. Right? So that means that even if your teammates are alive and you're dead, you can still win the game, and that often happens. When the total accumulated value of your hit points reach 0, you lose the game. When the total accumulated hit points of your enemy reaches 0, they lose the game, right? That's the best way to look at this game in terms of game philosophy, because then it will teach you to be a team player. Now, what does that mean in terms of bouncing shots? Well, that M3 Stuart that was facing me, every shot that he takes does 30 to 40 hit point damage. He bounced about 7 or 8 shots off me, which means not only did he damage me, but because I was able to bounce them when he was firing at me, it also meant that he wasn't taking them off my team. So therefore, every shot I put into him is taking 30 to 40 off him, which is reducing the total enemy hit pool point by 30 to 40. And every shot that he's firing at me is doing no damage, which is keeping our total hit points high. So you can see there's a double whammy effect of me bouncing shots, both for myself and for my team. And there's a negative double whammy effect on his team because he's receiving damage, reducing the total hit point of his team and not inflicting any damage on the enemy team. So there's actually a quadruple whammy, if you want to look at that way, effect. And if you can do that, then you're 90% certain of winning the game. So think about that and keep that in mind, that bit of game philosophy there. It's good game discipline and also will keep you honest and keep you a good team player. Now I'm doing the M3 Stuart again, this time with the autoloader, so you can see the difference. As I said, Fortress Bear, like the other map mines we just did, is one of those maps you're going to play most. So what I did here, I used the speed of the tank to get up into a very good position, spot up the enemy. I only had my turret shown, so as you saw, I bounced another shot there. And again, we're getting a quadruple whammy effect. As I spotted up the enemy, I was able to do some damage and I didn't receive any damage. Again, I'm going to pop up again. Again, you can see another shot into the Chi-Ha, roll back down again. And again, I bounced a shot, didn't receive any damage. So damage blocked, you see the ribbon popping up there. Now, all of those guys know that I'm there. So all 5, 6, 7 guns are going to be pointed at me, looking for me to pop over the hill again. So I decide not to do that. And again, this is good gameplay and it's nothing spectacular, it's just using your head. So don't pop up when there's 6 or 7 guns waiting for you to do so. So I moved, switch location, leave all of them there waiting for me, and I pop around here to help my teammates. And I put 2 shots with the autoloader into him. Now, I want to follow him. Now I could go around behind him, but I decided not to do that because that will expose my side of my back to his teammates on the right hand side. So again, clever gameplay, thinking about where the enemy is. Coming around this side of him, which is not the optimal side for going after him, but it's the optimal side for not receiving damage from his teammates. and we put 2 shots into him. Now we have cleared him, so we can move on and try to intercept some of the other reds. Now I know that where all the reds are, I'm checking the mini-map, I know that there's a large concentration on the left hand side, but these two over here are isolated. So again, instead of running into all the enemy guns, I decided to go after the isolated reds and also help my friend here in the T1. So here we go, and as I said to you before, you don't always need a shell to make a kill. I just rammed him there using the strong armour on the bottom part of my tank, and we know that that armour is there because we just looked at it in the tech spec, right? So this is why it's always important to understand all the dynamics of your tank. Because if we hadn't looked at that tech spec, we didn't know that the bottom part of the tank is so strong, then we don't know whether we can ram or not. And we could ram and end up doing more damage to us than the enemy. But I know that that's a light tank that I was ramming there, and I also know that I have very strong armour at the bottom of my tank, so I know that I can ram. Now this guy I would not ram, because this is a very heavily armoured tank, and ramming him is a very bad idea. You will do as much damage to me as I would to him, so that's why I use shells on him. And this is why I said in Blitz Buddy, when you're looking at that app, that it's important to understand the tanks that you play, but also the tanks you play against, even if you've no intention of playing them, because it gives you information that allows you to make decisions like that. For example, should I ram, should I not? What part of the tank can I ram if I am going to ram? How long does the enemy take to reload, for example? How many shots can I put into him while I'm waiting for him to put a shot into me, etc. Again, I'm reversing backwards here so that I'm only trying to show my turret to this guy, so that I can put as much damage into him and bounce as many shots as possible from him. Now I let him drive by me there, like a Top Gun move, if you've seen that movie. Just, you know, hit the air brakes, let him fly by. Then he exposes his rear to me and exposes the side of his tank. I keep moving, look at me wiggling, creating angles, difficult for me for the pen. Never sit still, as we say, stopping is dropping. When you stay still, you enable the enemy to get easy shots on you. And again, I know he's a very lightly armoured tank, so again I use the strong lower part of my tank to just finish him off while I'm reloading. Now I'm reloading again, and as I said, you can do an automatic reload by opening up the shell selector. There is only one shell type in the lower tiers, but when the icon appears, double tap on that, and if you've got one shell in the breach, double tap on it and you get a full reload. So it means it's quicker, and you also don't have to fire off a shell to get a free reload. Now again, this guy panics, gets out of position, and he gives me a nice easy shot into his rear. Now I'm going over to help the guys over here. Now again, I know where the reds are. I'm looking at the mini-map, I see exactly where they are. So I decided to go the long way around. Why the long way around? Because I want to come in behind them, not side on, to give me the biggest advantage possible. And here again I come in behind. This is clever play, and this is not something that I am doing because I've many games under my belt, so much more experience. This is just using your brain. And if you're playing this game, you have a brain, so therefore use it. And just try to think about tactics. And this clever gameplay, this can win you games. If I'd driven into the side here, well, I would have come on side onto him, so I have no advantage over him. Whereas coming this way, I come in from his behind, I got a couple of free shots into him, and also I can use this hill here as cover. Now I know he's down to one shot, so I speed in to get the kill, and I'm going full speed, so it makes it very difficult for his aiming time to zoom in on me. And you see the beauty of the magazine there. The first shot bounced, but the second shot gets me the kill. If I had been a single shot there, I would have had to wait to reload, and I would have taken more damage. Now this is a heavily armoured tank. This is a very good tank, and you saw I did a review on it, and normally he would have an advantage in a brawl like this because his armour is heavier than mine, but I'm using my ally to distract him, and I'm trying to come in behind him. Again, put 2 shots into him, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to continually move. I'm not going to make it easy for this guy. I'm also going to try to help my ally as much as possible by taking hit points off him and also trying to distract him. Unfortunately, I'm not able to save my ally completely But then if he'd stayed where he was, front onto that guy, he probably would have bounced the shot, but by coming behind him like that, he gave him a shot into his rear, which made it easier for this guy to kill him. But I'm keep moving and I'm side on to him, and again the magazine helps me out because I'm able to put 2 rounds into him, and that's game over. And as you can see then, I got a mastery badge in this game, plus a few other badges, 6 kills, and really did a bit of a carry for my team. But again, as I said, it is a team game. I give a worthy opponent to the PZ35T because he played very well, and that's what we should do. We should be gentlemen when we play the game, or gentle ladies, reward our opponents, especially if we lose. I know it's easier to do when you win, but if you lose, you should also say well done, good game, and give a worthy opponent to the opposition, and also effective player or team player to your teammates if they've helped you out. So you can see here mastery badge, top gun, high caliber, and defender, because the defender badge, by the way, comes from shooting the enemy when they're in the base, so they reduce their ability to capture the base, and it always goes towards XP, gives you a lot of XP and helps you win those mastery badges. Now just a quick recap on the game itself. I did nothing that you couldn't do as a new player, just using your head and using this good light tank. You know, if we recap here now, we'll see this is a very good light tank. The turret is brilliant. It has some armour, as we saw, particularly in the bottom and on the turret, and it will bounce shots, particularly when you're moving up. But always move, and move from cover to cover. Don't stay out in the open. That's a rookie mistake. And stay in cover when reloading if possible. Only come out to fire. And if you can't do that, keep moving. Keep your front facing the enemy. So you saw when I was in a few brawls there, I kept the front facing the enemy and I wiggled to create angles. And when I was brawling, I moved constantly. You saw when I was in a brawl with exactly the same tank as mine, I was able to bounce lots of shots. And you can do circle death in this tank because it's so fast. Keep the enemy gun away from you. And the next tank in this line is the M3 Stuart. There's a full guide on this channel, but as I always say, no rush. Play this tank a lot. Play 100 or so games in it. Get good at it. Get comfortable. And when you're ready, then move up. You'll enjoy the game far more, and you'll be a better player. Alright, cheers Mush. Take it easy now. Hope you enjoyed it. Take care. See you now. Boys.